Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly live question and answer where we turn to you, the audience, to ask us questions about health in general. We are an integrative medical practice located in Tustin, Orange County, where our doctors practice general medicine, so they're looking at all aspects of a patient's care, and we work very closely with specialists who are monitoring specialty areas, but we're really here to field, as we do with our patients here in person, any and all health questions that you may be concerned about. Of course, we take a very proactive, preventative standpoint on that. Our doctors here have specialized in lifestyle management, nutrition, and detoxification. Yes, absolutely. So what we want to do is make this an interactive process with you. So over on this side, you'll see a chat area, and if you're logged into QuickBooks, if you're logged into YouTube, you can ask us questions there in the chat. I'll be monitoring those questions and asking Dr. Rita Elthorpe, who's our founder and director here at the office, your questions. So, Doctor, how are you doing today?
I am blessed. I'm doing well.
Thank you. As well too. I'll go ahead and check and see. It looks like we're already getting a couple questions rolling in here. So thank you for joining us, and just ask you a favor. If you're watching this and you're finding this valuable, please tell your friends and family, loved ones about this. We're here every week for about a half an hour at a time. We meet at 9:45 a.m. Pacific, and we wrap around 10:15 so that we can get the doctor back to her patients. But this is the only place I know of where for free you can weekly get on here and ask health questions. And of course, the answers and the questions that we're doing here are for just general knowledge and betterment of your understanding of how our human body works, how we can prevent disease, how we can recover from disease. This is not specific medical advice. For that, you would need to see a doctor in person, so we're not giving specific medical advice, right, doctor?
Right.
Okay. Let's start off. We have a question here from Emmanuel. Emmanuel says, will a nursing baby also experience the keto flu? A couple questions, so let's start with that one. Will a nursing baby experience the keto flu?
Well, the keto flu refers to this very low carb phase that many people are in. They're trying to lose weight, improve their immune system, detoxify, and just re-stimulate their immune system and mental clarity, all these wonderful things from a very low carb diet. And what we find is there are many benefits. I don't know of any downside. When you start the keto diet, you're usually addicted, so to say, to carbohydrates. On the American Standard Diet, you are getting so many carbs all the time.
So much insulin being pushed into the bloodstream to handle the breakdown of those sugars, the glucose.
Right. And with such a high carb prior diet, then you go into a very low carb diet. For a few days, you're going to have what they call the keto flu, which is the withdrawal of that quick energy flow just from glucose,
right.
Okay? And fructose, these sugars.
As the body's transitioning into ketones as a source of energy, which is what's made when lipids are broken down, when fats are broken down.
Right. You're essentially switching to fat metabolism, and that's why there's such good weight loss. If you're nursing...
a baby is not on a ketogenic diet.
No. The mothers throughout all of history have never had access to the typical American high carb diet, okay? So mothers throughout centuries have been basically on a keto-like diet for the most part. There weren't stores you could go to, candy wrappers, packaged processed foods. So I would not be worried as long as the mother is eating a healthy proteins and fats and some low-carb vegetables. She should do quite well, and the baby should also do quite well. I don't see that the baby will have any problem because women have never been exposed to all these sugars until our current 21st century, late 20th century Western diet. And so they've done all very well, and I would not be worried. I don't think the child will have any keto flu problems.
If the mother is following a ketogenic diet.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That's a great question. I've never heard that one before. Question number 2 from Emmanuel. Will the 2 o'clock crash go away once a person switches to low carb?
Yes, typically it takes a man about 2 days to go through what we call the keto flu. That's the heavy dependency on carbs, and the desire for carbs and cravings is about 2 days in a male. In a woman, it's approximately 3 days, and that's because men have more muscle mass. So the conversion to fat burning from the excess carb burning in men occurs quicker, and so that afternoon typically described slump will pass in a man around 2 days. A woman, it takes about 3 days because we have less muscle mass.
Right. Okay, good question. Number 3 from Emmanuel. What do you recommend as some first foods for a baby?
Breast milk.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
they're talking about as a baby's moving on to solids off of breast milk.
I see, yes. I would keep the baby on breast milk as long as possible. If you ask what a child should then start to eat, I would puree your foods. If you're moving the baby around, probably no earlier than 6 months, whatever you're eating in your menu, you should puree it. And ancient people would chew their food and then give their chewed food to the infant. So, we have to talk about how mankind has done this. There was no Gerber's baby food, 190 years ago or 2,000, 5,000 years ago. So table food is fine for the baby when you've decided to move the child onto a diet that is supplanting or replacing breast milk, which is just your pureed foods. And of course, I would hope that you would have the vegetables and the proteins and not a high carbohydrate menu, because you don't want to stimulate this child fat cells to become carbohydrate dependent either. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I love these questions, Emmanuel, because I actually have a brand new, beautiful little baby boy that we're enjoying. So this is good information for me as well, too.
August is 7 weeks old right now.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's gaining weight nicely, and he's only on breast milk.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else there? You're saying first foods for a baby. Well, just a thought. I know a lot of the foods we typically put babies on are like these Gerber baby type foods, and they seem to mirror what we do with adults, which is a high carbohydrate, high sugar, very sweet, soft foods for the baby, and that's probably not good to give the baby all that sugar so early on.
Well, the number of fat cells you have is actually fixed. You don't grow new fat cells. What you do is a fat cell just becomes fatter. And in the fatness of that cell, a lot of changes take place and disruption in metabolism and inflammatory issues. So you want to have healthy, non-processed foods. You want your chicken, you want your fish, you want your beef. Hopefully it's all grass-fed, wild-free, pasture-raised materials. And it should be what you're eating. Basically, if mother is eating chicken and green beans and she's making her milk, then a bit of that chicken and green beans are in the construct of the milk. So it's not like it's absolutely foreign to the baby.
Right.
So if you eat a cow that is fed a lot of corn, which is a fattener because it's high carb, that cow is going to have reaction to the corn, just like if you ate a high corn diet, which many of us do through the processed corn tortilla chips. The Taco Bell, has the corn, what do you call that little thing that they put the beef? Tortilla. Mm-hmm. And so you are actually whatever you ate. So if you're breastfeeding your baby and the mother's eating regular food, that's the food the baby's going to get. So when you transition to eating or pureeing the chicken and the green beans, that's absolutely fine for the child. I would not go to processed foods. I would puree what you're eating, and you should be eating a healthy diet.
All right, great questions, Emmanuel. Thanks for asking those. All right, while we wait for a few other questions to come in, remember you can ask your questions over here in the comment section. I'll keep an eye out for those. we don't have a lot prepared today, but in terms of a subject to talk about. But doctor, is there anything in particular that's been bouncing around in your mind or that patients have been bringing up with you? Oh, and just let me pause you before you answer that question. I do want to mention next week, I think we're going to be having a special guest with us, another doctor come and join us, right?
Yes. His name is Dr. Shulian, Dr. Emmanuel Shulian. He's a cardiologist. I've worked with and known Dr. Shulian for maybe 3 decades. A wonderful cardiologist who is integratively motivated. He just gave me a consultation on one of my patients who agreed that she did not need to go on the statins, but was willing to very aggressively follow a healthy lifestyle change that is monitored. So I think you'll appreciate next week when Dr. Shulian comes back. He has his practice in Newport Beach. He does all the standard of care in cardiology, but he brings to the table an appreciation of the preventative and lifestyle changes that we so aptly try and help and encourage our patients to follow here. So I think it'll be nice. Please get your friends to come on next week to see Dr. Emmanuel Shulian and bring your questions for him about cardiology and so forth.
Circulation,
Yeah.
cardiovascular systems.
And he does the coronary artery calcium score. You may not have heard this, but the coronary artery calcium score is a CT picture of your chest, and this shows calcifications along the lining of the left anterior descending, right circumflex, right coronary arteries, and this is very predictive of cardiovascular disease and potential demise or incidents. So I'm very pleased that he's such a forward-thinking cardiologist. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the United States, followed closely by cancer. The circulation in the human body is damaged largely by our lifestyle diets. And as many people have seen smoking go down with our nation, we have seen, along with that and the removal of lead out of the gas, we are starting to see a diminishment in cardiovascular deaths that are what we would call premature. We have approximately 800,000 deaths per year from heart disease. And I want you to say, what's the common feature we're seeing with, even though smoking's going down and lead was taken out of the gas around 1990, we're seeing heavy metal toxins being reduced that had been breathed in, smoked in. Cadmium is very, very high in the cigarette tobacco. It's part of the processing of the tobacco. And these are well associated as free radical oxidative damaging elements to the nice endothelial lining of every little capillary in the human body. So that's a good thing, but we have many more lead, cadmium, aluminum, mercury, arsenic, many other heavy metal toxins. So I do see that correlation. I do see that we have to change not only our smoking and getting the lead out, but we have to do things proactively, which brings up EDTA chelation therapy, detoxification. We'll talk with Dr. Shulian about that and get his opinion on this. And he has worked with me for many, many years, and our patients have always done well with him, as all of our patients, even with this COVID-19 flu. I don't know of any single patient in our practice amongst us 5 doctors that had a problem with COVID-19. And I have patients who are cancer survivors, and they have...
they're in that at-risk group. We have many 70, 80, 90-year-old patients.
Yes, and some 100.
Right.
And we have diabetics, we have obese, we have the autoimmune disease, we have the cardiac diseased patients. And in the midst of all these patients, we have set them up from day one when they come to us with preventative diet, lowering their carbs, because that depresses your immune system. We gave them vitamin D to enhance their defense, which just last week came out in England from a university. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but they endorsed the vitamin D usage correlated absolutely statistically well with outcomes of COVID-19. And you know, England is higher in latitude on the earth than we are here in California. And what they did is they looked at 117 countries. They looked at their latitude, which means further and further from the light radiation, the ultraviolet light that helps make vitamin D. And they found that low vitamin D levels were very statistically linked with poor outcome and deaths. So for every, I shouldn't quote the statistics because I can't recall it right off my head, but for every degree north latitude and every degree lowering of the vitamin D correlated with a huge percent increase in mortality and death rates. So you see, we here are giving the multivitamins that have the zinc in it preventatively, long before COVID became a concern, the vitamin D, the low-carb diet, the quercetin that's in, also known to be very beneficial as what we called an ionophore. It helps get the zinc into the cell to stop viral replication. We talk about sleep cycles. We talk about water, hydration as your best nutrient to take. We talk about regular exercise. And so I think we are a beautiful example here that I brought up last week about the studies done on healthcare systems throughout the globe that are westernized kind of countries. Right. And out of the 25 they looked at, the United States was not listed as one of the best countries for healthcare. And then when they looked at the top ones like Japan and maybe it was New Zealand and some others in the top 5, it talked about they're having a very high percentage of family practice, general practice physicians, and they esteemed them greatly. So it said the higher your primary care general practice ratio to the population, the better the outcome of the overall health, longevity, and well-being and healthcare dollar cost of the population of that nation. Mm-hmm. So you can see here in this microcosm at our clinic, our patients all did well. We're primary care. We are preventative. We try and build your immune system. And remember early on I said I think the reason why California did so well as a state, even though we have very populated Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, Los Angeles, we had really a very low incidence for death rate. And I think that's because Californians have, as a state, always been health oriented. And as soon as a concern came up, I saw all the shelves empty out of vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc supplementation, and so I think this is something that should have been addressed. Of course it isn't, because it really doesn't make the pharmaceutical hierarchy and medical system hierarchies a lot of profit.
Good stuff. Yeah, I was just reflecting this morning that if we had a serious COVID-19 case with one of our patients, we would have known about it. Mm-hmm. And yet, even though we have a patient population that is very much in that at-risk category, yes, we've been doing so well. Yes. And we've continued to have people come in and get their IVs. Anybody that was concerned about immune compromise, they've just been doing great. And I'm really proud of our patients. I think right now, what's going on in the world right now, there's so much uncertainty, so much fear. I was just talking to my wife that we don't know exactly what's happening with the school year, with our kids, which will reflect on, of course, parents and work. The election is coming up. There's so much uncertainty. The rioting that's happening right now, the protests. It's a very interesting time to be alive. But I think just focusing on what we do know, what we do have in the family unit, and, loving your neighbor and taking care of your body and your family's body, that these are the things that we can focus on positively and meditate on to be strong and resilient through this time.
Yes, if there's any one item that I have seen medically and my other clinicians that work here, is the fear factor has driven up anxiety. This anxiety has driven to requests for many antidepressant prescriptions, anti-anxiety prescriptions, and hearing of, through my patients, of friends or relatives that actually have committed suicide. We know in Oakland there had been a report on May 26th on their Channel 7 News. I think it was the Marietta Hospital. The ER physician there said they had seen as many suicide that they would see in a whole year in the 1 month between May 26th and April 26th. So that is the impact I have seen of this virus. And I really want to encourage my patients, my family and friends, that we have an exquisite immune system that we physicians are still learning about, and immunologists and researchers and scientists. The answer to the healthcare system is a integrative, that's why we call ourselves integrative clinic here, looking at the ground level clinician work we do preventatively along with research for the best outcome. And I think we have too much looked as if it's like a God complex that a university or someone with letters behind their names makes a statement as if that's an absolute truth. We also reviewed on the last week that there are many people who criticize our highest institutions for some of their outcome, maybe fear-mongering that resulted in creating all this fear. Fear itself is an immunological cortisol-generated immunosuppressant. So we have to have a sober, personal, individual responsibility that we emphasize here for your life, your family, and your personal situation about how much sugar and fruit sugar are you going to consume that will in fact depress your immune system. So you have to go low carb. You have to start to self-discipline to restrict a treat to a much less frequency than what you would get through your social marketing, social group pressures. You have to stop eating late at night, which shuts off somatostatin release in the evening to repair you. But if you put a big load of food in your stomach past 6 o'clock, that is going to shut off your healing. You have to get out and do some regular form of exercise. You have to fall in love with water as your preferred drink. You have to start taking, because we have such a genetically modified, glyphosated food, packaged, hydrogenated fat, a shelf life extending on fake food, it's really not food. You have to take some nutritive support of quality products. Doing all these things, then you need to be at peace that you've done your part, and we're here to help monitor. We can do micronutrient assays and so forth to see how well you're achieving this.
Great summary. Got another question in here from Emmanuel again. My son is 23 pounds and 5 months old. He likes to be held by mama all day. She uses a baby carrier to wear him and continue her chores a couple hours at a time. Is this a decent amount of exercise?
For the mother?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Not for the baby.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It's a very busy life for a mother with her cooking, her cleaning, her laundering, carrying the baby around. That extra weight is mass, and if you understand physics, mass and motion is energy exerted. And so that extra 23 pounds she's carrying him is actually helping her with her muscle resistance exercise. So I would say that's absolutely fine.
Right. Okay, we just need to be mindful of what mom's eating as well, too.
Yeah, well, of course, hopefully she's doing what I'm saying, yeah.
Of course. Okay, actually, I believe that's it for the questions right now, and we're just about out of time. Just want to remind you all, I'm pretty excited to have a guest on next week. I don't think we've had a guest yet, especially another physician. So join us next week. Tell your friends and family. We have a cardiologist that we've been working with for many, many years that we respect, understands what we're doing. So bring your cardiology type questions to us next week. We'll be joined by Dr. Shulian. And Doctor, anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I'm just hopeful that you are inspired to take care of yourself, take personal responsibility for your health, and understand that if you do, as we saw here in our clinic, all those high-risk people, including myself, okay, because I'm in that age group, I don't have comorbid diseases, but I've done things to stay well all my life. I have always taken supplemental nutrients because my father was in food research. I have always consumed a lot of water and avoided the sugar processed foods because my father specialized in fatty acid research. I avoided the packaged foods, hydrogenated fats. I only cook with butter and coconut oil. So I believe that you need an appreciation of how fantastic our immune system is and how it can be turned on in a matter of hours just by doing a simple fast. And miracles happen. So I just had a patient, a brand new patient, who was on 134 international units of insulin, NPH insulin, which is like an intermediate long-acting insulin. And she had been on this for years, just giving it to herself every morning. Plus she's on metformin. Plus she is now fighting cancer. Well, we know insulin is a growth-stimulating hormone, and if you're fighting cancer, you don't want to have as much insulin around if at all possible.
Right. Cancer cells have 18 times the insulin receptors of a normal healthy cell.
Absolutely. So I examined on our first visit her need for this, and she developed diabetes as an adult, which meant she was a type 2 diabetic. Lifestyle and her eating had generated this high carb, high use of insulin, which couldn't keep up, and then her blood sugars went up, and then they gave her insulin. And so she had been on that many, many years, and I told her at the first visit, stop. Well, she was afraid, the family was concerned, but I worked and texted with them every 4 hours, checking on her, and she has been off her insulin for 3-4 days now. Not one problem, and her blood sugars are under very good control. She's just on the metformin. Now that's not to say all of you can just stop. This is under medical management, but
you were watching her very closely through the weekend.
Absolutely. Her daughter would text me all of her blood sugars before a meal, upon arising, 1 hour afterwards. And we found that she did not need any insulin.
That's amazing.
And so that's one good healthy step to help her oncologist help her with a wonderful outcome.
Right. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that testimony with us.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I want to thank you all for joining us. We will be back here next week, as we always are, on Wednesdays at 9:45 a.m. Pacific, and we'll go to about 10:15. We'll be joined by a cardiologist next week. Looking forward to speaking with him and answering your questions. Tell your friends, tell your family, and like the video if you would. Subscribe to the channel if you're finding these videos valuable, and we look forward to seeing you next time and answering your questions. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Tell your